Welcome to WeAreSC. This is Erik McKinney, joined by Greg Katz. And Greg, we are talking USC's 38-13 win against Washington State. Our five things, and I'm going to let you kick off right at the top. The first thing, the player of the game for you.
In my mind, no question, it was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Hard to believe he hadn't scored a touchdown all season in the pass reception. So he certainly made up for lost time with four of them, and they were all different in their own way. He looked like what he used to look like, at modern day. And for whatever reason, I don't understand what Washington State's thoughts were on playing a lot of man-to-man, which I think we all would agree is a recipe for disaster against this receiving corps. But that's what they elected to do. But they helped make him the player of the game, in my opinion.
I'm going to go on the other side of the ball. I'm going to say Talanoa Hufanga. I think it was huge what the USC staff was able to do with him. You're down. Raylan Goforth's not playing in this game. Paulie Ote is not playing in this game, and it looked like you were going to have sort of a combination of Kanai Mauga there and maybe Raymond Scott and then Tuasivi Nomura. They go ahead and they play a dime defense, and they have five safeties on the field for almost that entire game. And one of those guys is Talanoa Hufanga, who comes up into the box and is playing linebacker basically for you that entire game. And he was unbelievable there. He's rushing the passer, he's dropping in coverage, he's making tackles all over the place. He led the team with 9 tackles. He had 1 sack. He had an interception that was just unbelievable. The tip pass, then he corrals it, then he's returning it 37 yards, hurtling over a defender. It was everything that he can do kind of in that play. And Nick Figueroa ends up with 3 sacks on the game, but 2 of them are Talanoa Hufanga right in the face of the quarterback and kind of setting up Figueroa's sacks. So even beyond what the stats show for Talanoa. So he's my player of the game, and I thought the USC defense kind of went as he went in this game, and he was a real leader on that side of the ball. So now we've taken care of the player of the game. What was your play of the game?
Well, I'm going to have to take a page out of your book, and I think that Talanoa Hufanga's interception, the athleticism, tipping the ball, getting the ball, running upfield and hurdling, a Washington State player, and to continue running, I thought was sensational. Tremendous athletic ability.
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to pick 2. I think the pass, the longer pass from Keaton Slovis to Amon-Ra St. Brown, the touch on it, the catch that he had. I mean, you could say a couple of his touchdown catches were just it's that display of what he can do. But I'm going to go back further than that. Washington State has a 4th and short on their first series, their first drive of the game. Maybe they could kick a long field goal and get some points. That ends up being an incomplete pass. USC takes over, and boom, it's 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. Washington State kind of never is able to catch their feet after that, and USC just kind of pushes them back over and over and over. So I'm curious, maybe the result is still the same at the end of it, but if Washington State comes out, they get points on their first possession, or they convert that 4th down and take it in for a touchdown, maybe it's a different game, but I see that as kind of being in a 25-point win where maybe there isn't a one-play thing that changes the outcome. I think that may have been kind of one of the more important ones in a 28-0 first quarter. Going on to our next thing, the thing that you expected to see and then saw in this game for USC against Washington State.
Well, I expected to see that if the Washington State secondary decided to play man-to-man, that they were going to get worked, reamed, destroyed, embarrassed. And I don't understand what Rolovich was thinking. Why in the world, against one of the best receiving corps in the country, and it's already been validated, you don't play USC man-to-man, unless maybe you're Alabama, or Clemson, maybe not even Notre Dame. But, why they would play SC man-to-man is way beyond my pay grade, but it was stupid.
The thing that I expected and saw was Keaton Slovis kind of throwing the ball the way that we have come to expect from Keaton Slovis. And does that go into what you mentioned because Washington State came out and played a lot of man coverage early on? Probably a little bit of that, but he felt more confident. He felt more in control, and the ball was coming out of his hand in a way that we're sort of more expecting it to. And I think that's big for him going forward. I think we saw it a little bit against Utah, but there was still kind of some little fits of stops and starts. I think early on in this game, we got a chance to see again kind of the Keaton Slovis of old, I guess, at quarterback, where you know what you're getting every game coming into the season, the rest of the short season with him there. And then the fourth thing, kind of the other side to that coin, the thing that surprised you, what maybe you expected something and got something else in this game.
Well, I'm going to go a little off the beaten path with this one, but I was really surprised when Keaton Slovis got hurt and they showed his hand. You couldn't tell whether it was a hand injury or what it was. Later, he said it was a funny bone. At least that's what he said. And the fact that they put him in the tent and then he came back out, the SC had the big lead, and then they put him back in the game. I could not understand why you would do that. The game was in hand. You got UCLA coming up, which is probably going to be for the Pac-12 title, at least from SC's end of it. And it made absolutely no sense because when they put him back in the game, he got racked up. He got smashed. He got sandwiched. And I go, what are they doing? And I don't think that I'm alone in that feeling with the people that were either in the press box or were watching on TV going, why? I couldn't come up with any good reason. Now, maybe they have a good reason. I just don't see one.
Yeah, I want to say that I'm surprised that when Washington State goes away from man coverage into more of a zone, a two deep, kind of a cloud look, all of that, that USC just could not find an answer. 66 total yards in the second half, that they could not do really anything after they did that. I want that to be the surprise. It no longer is. It's now sort of what you expect. So, but I will say the surprise is just how poor the USC running game was in that game against Washington State. I don't think anyone really expects USC at this point to come out and run for 200, 220, 250 yards, all the time, or against a defense that wants to do anything to stop the run. I understand that maybe Washington State was looking to stop the run a little bit earlier, and when the passing game is working the way it was early on, you certainly can understand, okay, go ahead and lean, on those guys, on those wide receivers and on Keaton Slovis, that's fine. But it was never there. The run was never there. They had one rushing yard until Quincy Jounty runs for 4 on the very last drive of the game, just running out the clock. The longest run of the game was Keenan Kristen right before halftime, again, just running out the clock to take the ball into the locker room. This was a running game, and we should mention the offensive line is playing with a true freshman in Cortland Ford at left guard, and then brought in a true freshman in Jonah Monheim at right guard in the first half. So you've got 2 true freshmen at either guard spot, but there was just nothing in the running game. Not even a glimmer of, okay, maybe they can build on that. And for Clay Helton to say we want to run for 165, 170 yards a game, this is a back to the drawing board game. It feels like because you couldn't find an answer. I understand that you've got a couple true freshmen in there, but there's got to be something a little bit more against a Washington State defense that hadn't been lights out against the run kind of coming in. This is not a defense that you sort of fear when it comes to the running game. So I was not surprised that they didn't put up a huge number of rushing yards, was surprised at sort of, it felt like a pretty significant step back in the running game for USC. Going to our fifth thing, wrap it up here. Your biggest takeaway moving forward for USC that comes out of this game?
They better find a running attack when they play UCLA. I don't need to go over what you said because you hit the nail on the head. You know what? For goodness sakes, this is USC. They had 1 yard rushing almost to the very end of the game. And then they got a couple of, to run out the clock rushes for maybe 2 or 3 yards. And they end up with 5 yards. Really? The University of Southern California got 5 yards rushing? It's a disgrace. I will tell you that right now. It's a disgrace. You cannot win championships or national championships on a consistent basis if you don't find a running attack. The key to me is I don't think they can find a running attack because that's not what they're committed to doing. And we know that somewhere along the line, Clay Helton, I don't know whether he'll do it, has got to sit down with Graham Harrell and say, look, we need to do better on the running game. It may be too late for that. Maybe that's something in spring ball, or maybe even, based on rumors, maybe Graham Harrell won't even be at USC in the spring. Maybe he'll be taking there's a lot of rumors out there, but that's irrelevant at the point of where we are today in the question that you asked. If they don't have a running attack against UCLA is way more balanced than USC. I was impressed by what they did against ASU the other night. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but they better find one.
It is, and it's felt like that the last couple of weeks. I know Utah is seen as a better run defense, but again, under 100 yards against Utah, just a little bit under 100 yards here against Washington State, just the 95 yards short of that. For me, the takeaway, I'm going to let, because I've hammered a little on the negative, and then I'm going to go with the defensive performance. I think what they were able to do defensively in a look that we haven't seen a whole lot of, and having to replace some parts at linebacker and figure things out. Boy, I thought they came up with a solution there. And I thought that the defense played hard and they played fast and they played well. There's a couple plays, any game you're going to be able to nitpick and, this should have been a tackle for loss and it went for 8-9 yards. Those kind of plays, yeah, they're still there. But boy, I think that side of the ball is playing with a lot of confidence right now. And again, I mentioned 66 total yards in the second half. Yeah, it's a huge lead, but that's the kind of offensive performance that could let a team kind of chip away and start to actually make it a game. And USC's defense, they rose up all the time. I think Washington State had 21 total yards in the third quarter. So while USC was not getting it done offensively, the defense again steps up. And I think that is something that USC can maybe start hanging its hat on a little bit after getting their feet under them a little bit the first couple weeks. We've now seen a couple pretty good, I think, defensive performances. And that's putting that up to a USC standard. I've liked kind of what I've seen on that side of the ball. And again, you've got guys, Talanoa Hufanga, and you didn't really even see a whole lot from the front seven, the defensive line, Drake Jackson and Marlon Tuipulotu and guys that have been making, huge plays all season. They weren't really there. And this was a game for the defensive secondary to step up. And I thought they did that. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that's my takeaway, that I think the defense is going to play. I'm going to let you kind of get last word in here. USC, UCLA coming up and it's not for the Rose Bowl, and it's not the huge national event that it sometimes is. But your thoughts kind of going into that game and maybe what it means even in this season.
Well, it's like the old days, and this is what I wrote about. The abnormal of this season is ending in a normal way. Both SC and UCLA have something to play for. SC has to play for one, a chance to win, the South Division. Two, they can host. There's no question. If they go undefeated, they're going to host the title game in the Coliseum. And of course, if they want to get to a big time bowl game like the Fiesta Bowl and play somebody like Indiana, it's all there for them. And the beauty of it is, or should I say the ulcer of it is that UCLA is standing in the way, like I've seen so many times over the the last two generations of my life that look who's waiting for them. Who gives the biggest upsets at the worst possible times than UCLA? Ask Pete Carroll about that 13-9 game in the Rose Bowl when they should have won the national championship and they couldn't score more than 9 points. So I will say this. That game Saturday, there may not be anybody in the Rose Bowl, but they got plenty to play for because UCLA knows, okay, we're not going to win the division, but they want to be 4-2. They could knock SC out of the division championship possibly, and UCLA is going for a bowl bid too, and where that program is now, you know something, they want payback from last year. So I think it's going to be a fascinating game. And boy, I tell you, the Trojans better be ready to play because I know UCLA will be.
And let's not forget, with the way the calendar is shoved back now, that game is coming right before that early signing period. And so there are going to be, you know, a lot of eyes on how maybe that affects that part of the calendar here with USC and UCLA. Maybe not going after a lot of the same guys, but boy, does that give you sort of a boost. A win in that game for either program would give you a real boost going into that signing period. So again, that's our wrap from USC. Beating Washington State 38-13, got out to a huge lead in the first quarter, was able to hang on despite a rocky performance from the offense in that second half. So again, one more game in the 2020 regular season for USC, and it will be against UCLA in a Saturday evening kickoff at the Rose Bowl. So for Greg Katz, this is Erik McKinney. Thanks for watching WeAreSC.